So for me, I wouldn't be where I am today without the mentors that I've had. And that includes women and men. I mean, I look back when I graduated, and I think about Mary Bishop and Elizabeth Miller and Laura Hartney and these great women that were leading and being part of CIP and the organization. And right away, when I started, I was ended up becoming the student rep on the what is now SPPI Council. And that really changed my life, like really getting into the volunteerism in our profession to start meeting those other women and those other and men that could help me throughout my career. So I really encourage new people into the profession to really take that volunteerism and get out there to meet people and take the opportunity at these kind of conferences, because you really do. It's starting to make those connections and those connecting the dots with people to be able to help you. Because through my career, all those places that I was going to, I was basically the only person. Like I was the newest, like Yorkton had never had a planner before, and there I was, starting up a planning department, working with the building officials, working with the engineers, and I'm like only out of school for, a few years, and it's like, what am I gonna do? If it wasn't for, Denton Yo, Gary Buchanan, Chris Leach, and all these people that I had met through volunteering through CIP, where I could pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got this issue, what can I do? I mean, that's really how I was able to move forward. And my motto, don't reinvent the wheel. There's people out there that have done all this, and they know how to do it better, so let's pick up the phone. So mentorship to me is really important, and I encourage that, and I want people to be able to, I am accessible, like, call me, I'll help you. It's so important to me. And it's about those interactions that, for me, that happen that are just, you don't even know it's happening. So I'll just give you an example where I was in Prince Albert and my car was needing fixing. So I took it to Honda and needed a drive home. So I asked the guy to drive me home, and it was a young fellow, and he had just graduated. He told me he had just graduated from high school, and he asked me what I did at City Hall. And so I started telling him, well, I'm a senior planner, and well, what do you do? And well, I get to know about developments before anybody else does. I get to help create communities. I get to do subdivisions, design subdivisions, and just talking about the everyday things that I do that I just kind of took for granted, but just told him this. So fast forward about 6 years, and I'm working in Mountain View County, and all of a sudden I get this email from this person. His name was Brad. And I was also on the internship where we got planning interns. And so I had just been to a planning intern meeting with all the interns in Alberta. And I get this email, and it started out something to the effect of, you won't know who I am, but you changed my life. And he said, and it was the guy that drove me back from Honda. And he said, I was lost and didn't know what to do. And you were so passionate about your job and changing a community that I went to university and I got a planning degree, and now I'm an intern in Alberta. So I printed out that email, and it's on my wall just to remind me that everyday conversations can change a person's life, and your passions really do that for them. And my daughter, I didn't tell you, I have a almost 12-year-old daughter who is very excited because she just became taller than me, whatever. That's not too hard, but anyway, she's the reason, she's the next generation, and we talk about that at the dinner table. I'm a single mom, we talk about that, and it's so funny because she says, quit doing that planner stuff to me, because she had a problem at school about a piece of play equipment, and she was complaining. The school won't do anything, the principal won't do anything. So I started walking through conflict resolution, okay, what's the solution here? Let's think, let's brainstorm. What are 5 solutions we can do? Can we get to 8? And then I made her present it to the school council. This happened 3 months ago, and I was so proud of her because by the end she was coming up with ideas. So I just think our skill sets and our facilitation and how we work with people is so important. I think as women, we really have that motherly instinct, whether or not we have kids or not. It's that instinct to care about our community, our people, and how we can just better our communities.
I'm always the emotional one, so she says things like that, and I get all teary. So expect that I know. As we pre-thought questions, I kind of ran through some thoughts last night, and I got all teary thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to, watch, I'll cry on you all. And those are the moments. And I think I spent 16 years being a Girl Guide leader. I did it. I came out of school determined I am going to sit on that planning committee for my community association, and I'm going to give them insight, and they're going to want to listen to me and use my expertise. And sadly, it was in most cases it was that. I had one situation where I had another lady on our committee who questioned me on my ethics for being on the committee. Like clearly I had a greater agenda for, if I was being kind to those coming in with propositions, I must really want to work with them at some point, or, there must be something there. And then I questioned it, and I thought, wow, I'm really maybe not making the impact I want to on this committee. So what am I going to do? I'm spending, every second Thursday, 4 hours a night on this committee. It's a lot of time. You plan all day, and I'm planning at night. I had a good friend who, went to school with at U of M, ran into her at the grocery store, and she said, "What are you doing for volunteer work?" And I thought, planning committee. I'm, disenchanted at the moment. And she said, "Do you want to be a brownie leader with me? Because the church down the street, they can't get anybody. They haven't had anybody for 2 years." And this was in the Beltline, so it's at St. Stephen's. And I thought, you know what? I could do this. I could do this. So we went in, ready to tackle the world. And boy, I wasn't expecting a bunch of 7-year-olds that were amazing. So much that I did this before I had kids, and I continued to do it up until I just retired last year. So I'll remain Cottontail forever. I promise I won't lose the name, because it was so important. I finally had to hit a point where my volunteer time has to come. My kids need all the attention right now, and I could go back to it. I could go back to it in 10 years. They'll make me get recertified, I'm sure. But anyways, I can go back to it in 10 years. But there's nothing greater than seeing the fear of, say, a first camp, and you've got these little girls who are just, oh, can I sleep on my own? Can I get away from my parents? And then 2 days later, you come back on the bus, and they've got this strength to their voices, and this, this I could do this camp again next weekend kind of mentality. And me and all the parents probably didn't sleep all weekend, but it was an amazing piece. So much that as much as I didn't sleep on foamies, and I had to deal with puke in the middle of the night and all those other things. Every single meeting we had every week had something, some change. And I've run into girls, 10 years later, where they say, "I remember that. I remember our years at Guide." So that's one. This is where I get emotional. And obviously I miss it. I think that's my problem. I miss it. If you're thinking of volunteering, it's a good place to start. Yeah, a very good place to start. I constantly need to be nurtured, just like I try to nurture others. I did a fun exercise, if you can imagine, going to a 60th birthday party where you actually have to do work for like an hour before you can actually have cake. We had to look at our path. We had to look at what does the next 5 years bring. And it was funny. I had all these connect the dots. It was my family, myself, the office, because I'm in my new position, I think about that just as equally as everything else. And where can I kept coming back to the word nurture. So I try my best in all those areas to nurture and mentor and be available. And then there's the part that's the me part. And so I try to take my time for me. And I also have my own coach that I spend a couple hours a month with to try and make me a better leader, so that I'm kind of getting it from as many ways as I can. And also just the opportunities with relationships that we have. An hour wine night can be the most inspirational thing for all of us. So roadblocks, I definitely had a roadblock when I first started BNA, because I had a graphic background. I wanted to improve how we looked and how we did things, and somehow I got slotted into awesome graphics girl. I did, so I was planning and I was doing all the boards and all the fancy reports, and I'm like, why am I doing all this graphic stuff? So when I went on my mat leave, I came back and I said, I need to use my voice. I now need to move on. We need to hire a graphic designer, and I need to focus myself on planning. And so I remember walking into Greg's office and going, we have to hire somebody. and I'm not doing graphics anymore. And he was like, but you do it so well. I'm like, I know, but we'll find somebody that can do it just as well. So I think that's learning the voice piece is very important for yourself. Don't get stopped somewhere just because you're scared to say, I want to try something else. My last little bit. One thing I've empowered my daughter to do, because this city has such opportunity. When we go out to a function and she's got new people, and she's quite outgoing, so I appreciate that. Not every kid's like that. I said, you need to tell me 2 new people you've met and what they do for a living. And what did they have to do for school, and do they love it? But if they look hesitant, don't ask them if they love Monday morning, because that might just cause something completely different. They might... So she does that. So usually we have this little, okay, tell me, did you learn anything about a career that you might be interested in? And so I think it's just having that dialogue, because the world is gigantic and there's so much opportunity. And we just have to make sure that we know they can ask the questions.
That was great. Very inspiring. I'm totally going to go off script because you knew I would at some point, so I'm just going to do it now. One of the things that I appreciate is Kathy just mentioned the word nurture, and that's sort of her motto, and that's the thing she goes to. I would say my 2 go-to words are compassion and persistence. I think if you do things from a compassionate point of view and you try to put yourself in the perspective of someone else, you'll always do the right thing. And persistence. You know what? I volunteer a lot, and I'm on a bunch of boards, some of which I've had to step away from because I'm running in the election. But I didn't get on them just because someone thought I was a great person to be on that board. I fought hard. The Vivo board up in my community used to be called Cardell Place. I applied once, got shot down. I applied again 2 years later, got shot down. And they asked me to come back for a 3rd time. And I said, do I really look like a complete idiot? I mean, how many times are you guys going to say no to me? And they put me on the board the 3rd time. And the 3rd time was the right time for me to be there. We were looking for major capital donations from people, and it was the right time for me to be there on that board. The other 2 times, I don't think I would have been as effective. Another good example, Calgary Economic Development has a real estate committee that I really wanted to be on, but I didn't fit the profile because I wasn't in real estate technically, although I ran the Real Estate Studies Center. So I went straight to Scott Hutchison of Aspen and said, you need to put me on that committee. And he said, oh. I said, I know you've only met me twice, but you really need to put me on that committee, and I'm going to keep asking you until you get me on that committee. So he got me an interview, and I got on that committee. And thanks to getting on that committee, I began to understand different intersections between organizations that were limiting Calgary from having full potential in terms of how we grow our economy. And I am ever thankful for the people who understand that my persistence is well intended, and they've given me the opportunities that I've had. So, in terms of barriers, yeah, I had them, but I also basically ripped them apart. And I would like to do that for the other young women that I see coming up in the same way. There's Pernilla Goodbrand is a researcher at the Westman Center. She looks at secondary suites and housing. She's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But because she's a sociologist in a business school, she had this feeling of being not up to the job and not as worthy as others. And I have worked very hard with her to help her see that the people side of the equation is just as important as the money side. And we were both given an amazing opportunity by Jim DeWald to get into that school and do something creative and incredible. So I keep looking for those opportunities. In terms of hiring and volunteering, I look for women that are going to do good stuff. Students, I've had the good fortune of having many, many incredible students come through the classes that I've done in urbanization. And I had a young woman say to me last week at a Design Talks event, if I hadn't taken your class and we hadn't learned about ULI's urban plan, I would have never realized what I'm capable of, and I now have a career path. So it goes to all of your points as well. Sometimes just telling your story and talking to somebody for a couple of minutes will change their path. And they may do something that they were always intended to do that they never would have figured out without you, urging them. And you know what? We've been talking about parents and kids. My mom is an incredible support to me. She allows me to go out and be a volunteer because she takes care of the dusting and the dishes at home as I'm out doing that. My daughter is also incredible. When she was 2.5, she was on the campaign trail with me, and we were door knocking. And I'll tell you, people are really nice to you when you have a 2.5-year-old with you. So She learned what canvassing was at a very early age. She takes an active interest in democracy and elections because of it. And she was the one who said to me about a year and a half ago, "You should run for office, Mom." So we do have huge ability to influence future generations, and we just have to remember that our stories are not insignificant. No matter how personal they are, they will touch somebody in a way that you may not expect. So keep sharing them. So, okay, I'm going to go back to script now. Is that okay? Okay, go back to script. All right. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is how women are uniquely positioned to think about urban planning from a social interaction and social infrastructure perspective. We're caregivers, and that often slants how we look at things. So because women are multitaskers and this influences how and when we work, we are sometimes able to balance family and work in a very different and sometimes bizarre kind of way. So can you all share how your workday has changed and how you've made accommodations to be able to take care of work and family, and whether you see things differently now than, say, 15 years ago? And we're going to start with Diana.
Yeah, so when I look back, like 15 years ago, my life was so different, right? No kids, so I was a workaholic. I'd go in early, do my work, get it done, and do all of those sorts of things. And so I think it was after I had my daughter that it was really, I had her in Bermuda, a different lifestyle, was married. But when I came to Alberta, I got divorced, and so I became a single mom of a 3-year-old. And that's when I really needed to change how I looked at things. I think inherently as women, when we look at plans and multitasking, because we have so much going on, we were able to do that. But all of a sudden this component of family came into play that was so much different. And of course, when I first started out, and to be quite honest, I had this stigma in my brain that I had to work extra hard because I was always in the room with just myself as a woman in a room of 20 men. So I was always trying to prove myself, and I could never let them show my vulnerability of needing to say, well, I can't do this because I have a family commitment and those sorts of things. So I really had to learn that it was okay to ask for help. It really was. And I think in Mountain View, going through personal things and fainted at the conference in Banff because I was overworked and not asking for that help. And it learned that people are there to help me and to hold us all up, and everybody recognized that. So I think through the years, I've learned that we do have to juggle that and have become more tolerant of being able to, not tolerant, that's not the right word, more about work-life balance. And I think over the past 15 years, we've seen that change. I've seen it in the places I've worked with policies that are actually addressing work-life balance and flexible work hours. And I think for me, I'm the executive director of city planning and development at the city. So I have the long-range planning, current planning, assessment and taxation under my portfolio. And I encourage my staff to family comes first. Work will always be there, and we can always help each other get through that. But when it comes to family, we have to make sure that they're their priority. So we always make sure of that. So through the years, my daughter, Madeline, has come to many public meetings with me. She's come to many council meetings with me and sat in the back, and thank God for fishy crackers and DVD players with headphones because it was sit in the corner, here's a coloring book, here's your movie, eat some fishy crackers, mommy's just got to go do a little speech, and she's learned that, and she's been appreciative of it. And I think people appreciate that when they see people having to balance that, and it's normal. I think nowadays that we do see that, and I love the fact that my daughter understands council. She understands what civic politics is about, because she says, I'm going to run for council, and that just makes me happy to know that she wants to be part of that. So again, I think it's just a changed understanding, but when it does come to work, it is interesting how we do things in terms of trying to get things done in a day. I mean, we multitask by doing phone calls in the car and emails. Now, I'm not doing that, I'm not texting and driving, but what I am doing is my daughter has become my assistant. She's 12 now, and I hear my phone go off, and I say, Madeline, can you read that email? And she'll read it, and I'll dictate to her. And she loves it. It's our little thing. She's like, I love being your assistant, Mom, but I don't get paid enough. So I keep telling her that through her performance evaluation, I might give her a raise. But yeah, her allowance. But it is. I mean, I think it's just about understanding that in our lives, they're busy. We're volunteering outside of work. We've got busy jobs, and we've got this balance of life. And then if you're a sandwich generation where you've got your kids and your parents that you have to take care of, we have to be even more supportive of all of us and all of those issues.
I think 15 years ago we just didn't have technology, which I think has absolutely helped that piece of it. I have a very supportive husband who has changed his career path a couple times to be supportive. You know, we have shifts. You know, I'm the morning bus. He's the afternoon bus. And many people cringe when they hear me say, I get up at 3 a.m. to get my work on the go so that by the time I hit the office, whether my day ends at 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, because my evenings are for my kids. So there's many people that will, you know, put kids to bed, go back to work. I can't, I have no brain at, you know, that time of night. So I get up early, although many people laugh when they get an email from me at 3:10 or 3:15, and it's easier just to send it than delay it because it may never go, right? And so I try not to work on weekends. So for me, the weekdays are my days. I go to bed with my kids, so I get sleep. But that's how I had to adjust it, just to make sure that I could go and, you know, I could watch that hockey game or I could watch the soccer. Like it's very important that they see that I'm present. I've trained my clients. My clients know we hit a certain part of the day. My kids were taught the F word from a client on the phone, even though they were pre-warned that there were kids in the car. So I've done many conference calls where I've had to drive. I now have a car that speaks to me if I get a text. So but it's you evolve that, and clients are very accommodating. They know that they're on my to-do list. I will get back to them. It may be a different hour that you get that response, but I think it's just I speak up and say, this is what I need to make everything work, and I appreciate it that you'll come along, and I've had no complaints from anyone. I had one client that was, he struggled with the hours, but then realized we'd get it all done in the time frame we needed to. So definitely the supports are important. Neighbors too. I've learned I've got a new network of neighbors that I'm there for them and equally back. So you've got to reach out where you can.